Okay, so have you ever, like, just even something small, like a sprained ankle, where getting from the car to the store feels like a huge trek?
Oh, yeah,
And you realize how much we take just like basic access for granted?
totally. And, that's what got us thinking about these disability stickers that you see, the blue and white symbols on cars,
Right.
because at their core, it's about access, right? Access to those designated parking spaces that are so important.
Exactly. And we actually found this super helpful guide online at driverstart.com that breaks down everything you need to know about how to get a disability sticker if you need one.
Yeah, so that's what this deep dive is all about today.
We're going to try to answer all those questions about who qualifies, what's the application process, and just some, helpful tips so you don't have to go through all the hassle of figuring it out on your own.
And so you're empowered, right?
Yeah.
If you ever find yourself in a situation or someone you know where this knowledge is needed,
And here's something that might surprise you. You don't actually have to be the one driving the car to get a sticker.
right? That's a really crucial point. A lot of people don't realize that.
We'll get into that a little bit later, but first let's start with the basics. What exactly is a disability sticker, officially speaking?
Okay, so officially it's a marker that's issued by your local government,
Hmm.
usually through the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, or some similar office.
Okay, so it's not like a DIY thing. You can't just print it out at
No,
home.
no, no. It's a very official document,
Mhm.
and it allows individuals with disabilities to park in those accessible spots
Mm.
that are, usually closer to entrances or have a little bit more space for wheelchairs and things like that.
Makes sense. And the guide mentions that there are actually stickers for both permanent and temporary disabilities. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so permanent sticker or placard is for people with long-term conditions,
Yeah.
like someone who uses a wheelchair all the time or has a chronic illness that makes it really hard to walk.
Right.
A temporary sticker is for shorter-term situations. So let's say someone's recovering from surgery or they broke a bone, something that's, temporarily impacting their mobility.
Okay, so it really depends on the specific situation. And even the stickers themselves, like the design and color, might differ depending on if it's permanent or temporary and on your specific state.
Exactly. Each state has its own rules and regulations, so it's important to keep that in mind.
Got it. So who actually qualifies for these stickers? Is it just anyone who wants to park closer to the store?
Not quite. It's really tied to having a medical condition that meets your state's criteria for what they consider a disability. So you can't just, apply because it's convenient. It has to be a genuine need.
Right. So what are some of the conditions that typically qualify someone?
So according to the guide, one of the main things is difficulty walking more than a short distance.
Yeah.
Like if you can't walk very far without experiencing a lot of pain or discomfort.
Okay.
Also limited mobility because of an injury or medical condition. And of course, if you use a wheelchair, a walker, or a cane regularly.
That seems pretty straightforward.
Uh,
What else is on the list?
Severe cardiac or lung conditions can also qualify because even a little bit of exertion can be really dangerous for folks with those conditions.
Mm.
Also, loss of vision or significant visual impairment. And this one might surprise people, but needing portable oxygen.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Uh,
But it makes sense when you think about how much energy it takes to move around with oxygen.
Absolutely. And the key thing is that for most of these conditions, you need a doctor or a qualified healthcare provider to sign off on it.
Right. So it's not just self-reported. You
Yeah.
need that medical certification.
Exactly. Okay, so let's say someone's listening and thinks they might qualify. What's the actual step-by-step process to get one of these stickers?
Yeah, the guide had a really helpful breakdown.
So step one, and this is super important, is check the requirements for your specific state.
Okay, why is that so important?
Because even though the general idea is the same everywhere, the exact rules and the application forms and the procedures, those can be different depending on where you live.
So what might work in California might not work in New York.
Precisely. So your first stop should be your state's DMV website. And you can usually find what you need by searching for something like disability placard application or, handicap parking permit, something like that.
Makes sense. So step one, state DMV website. Got it. What's next?
Next, you'll need to actually get the application form. And there are a few ways to do that. You can usually download and print it right from the DMV website. And some states even let you fill it out online.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah, it is. And the guide had a great tip. If you're having trouble finding the form online, call your local DMV or even your doctor's office because they often have paper copies.
Good tip. So you've got your form either printed or digital. What happens then?
So now you need that medical certification. The form will have a section for your doctor to fill out with details about your condition, whether it's permanent or temporary, and if it's temporary, how long it's expected to last.
So make an appointment with your doctor and get that taken care of. Who can actually sign off on this? Is it any doctor?
Usually it needs to be a licensed physician, like an MD or a DO. But in some states, other healthcare professionals can also do it, like a chiropractor or a nurse practitioner. So check the specific requirements on your state's application.
Okay, so your doctor fills out their part, you fill out yours. Now what?
Now it's time to actually submit the application. And there are usually a few different ways you can do this depending on the state.
Okay.
You can submit it in person at your local DMV or Department of Transportation office. You can mail it in, and more states are letting you do it online.
So a lot of options.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And what about the cost? Is there a fee for these stickers?
The guide mentioned something about that.
Yeah, so generally permanent disability stickers are free.
Hmm.
But for temporary ones, there might be a small fee. It really depends on your state. So it's always a good idea to check with your local DMV to be sure.
Okay, good to know. So you submit the application, and then comes the waiting game. How long does it usually take to get approved?
It can take anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. It's not super fast, so be patient. And the guide recommends keeping a copy of your application receipt or confirmation number, just in case there are any problems or delays.
Always a good idea. So we've talked about what these stickers are, who qualifies, and how to apply. But where exactly do you go to do all of this? We've mentioned the DMV a lot.
Right, the DMV or your state's Department of Transportation, those are the main places to go. But sometimes you can apply through other local government offices, like a city or county clerk's office. But definitely check with your state.
And of course, there's the online option, which is super convenient.
Absolutely. If you can do it online, I highly recommend it, especially if it's hard for you to get around.
The guide also mentioned hospitals and doctors' offices as possible places to ask about the application.
Yeah, so they don't actually process the applications themselves. But some hospitals and doctors' offices can help their patients with the paperwork. So it's definitely worth asking your doctor if they offer that kind of support.
Great tip. And lastly, there are nonprofit organizations that focus on disability advocacy.
Right, so those organizations can be a great resource too. They often have a lot of experience with this process and can help you navigate it.
Okay, so lots of potential avenues depending on your situation. Now, the guide had some really useful tips for making the whole process smoother. What were some of the main things you took away from that?
The biggest one is to double check your application before you submit it. Seriously. Any missing information or even a small mistake can cause a delay. So take your time and make sure everything's accurate.
Yeah, better safe than sorry. What else stood out to you?
If you're planning to submit your application in person, it's a good idea to call the DMV ahead of time to confirm what documents you need and whether you need an appointment. That way you don't waste a trip.
Oh, for sure. Nothing worse than waiting in line just to be told you need something else.
Also, don't forget to keep track of the renewal dates for your sticker, especially if it's a temporary one. They do expire. So set a reminder so you don't lose your parking privileges.
Really important. And lastly, the guide talked about how to properly display the sticker once you get it.
Yeah, that's crucial. The rules can be slightly different depending on the state, but you usually either hang the placard from your rearview mirror when you're parked in a disabled spot, or you display the sticker on your dashboard. So check the specific rules for your state.
Right. Okay. So we've covered a lot from the guide, but they also had a little FAQ section that I think is worth going over. It addresses some of the most common questions people have. Like the first one is, do you need a driver's license to get a sticker?
And the answer might surprise some people, but no, you don't.
No.
As long as you're someone who's regularly transported in a vehicle, you can get a sticker, even if you're not the driver.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier. It's really important for people who don't drive themselves but still need accessible parking when they're out and about.
Exactly. And what about the cost again? Are these stickers usually free?
Yeah. Is there a fee or not?
So permanent stickers are usually free in most states. But for temporary ones, there might be a small fee. Check with your local DMV to be sure.
Okay. And how long does the whole process take from start to finish? That's the question everyone wants to know, right?
Yeah, the guide says it can take a few days to a few weeks. Really depends on how busy your DMV is and their specific procedures.
Okay. So just be patient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the last question in the FAQ is about using your sticker in other states if you're traveling.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
So the good news is that most disability parking stickers are recognized nationwide because of reciprocity agreements between the states. So if you have a valid sticker from your home state, you should be able to use it in other states, no problem.
That's great news for people who travel a lot and need accessible parking.
For sure.
So to sum it all up, these disability stickers are really vital for people who need accessible parking, whether it's a temporary or permanent situation. To qualify, you need a medical condition that meets your state's criteria, and a doctor or healthcare provider needs to certify it.
Yeah. And the application process involves checking your state's rules,
Mm.
getting the right form, getting your doctor's sign-off, so submitting the application, which you can often do online or by mail,
Right.
and then waiting for approval.
Right. And remember, you can usually apply through the DMV or DOT. Your doctor's office or some nonprofits might be able to help. And double check everything on your application. Keep track of those renewal dates and display your sticker correctly once you get it.
Absolutely.
So that brings us to our final thought for today. Beyond the practical benefits of having a disability sticker, it's important to think about the bigger picture, like how important it is to have accessible infrastructure and support for people with disabilities, whether it's temporary or permanent.
Yeah.
Just imagine how much these seemingly small accommodations, like designated parking spaces, can impact someone's life.
Mm.
They can really help people be more independent and participate in their communities.
Absolutely.
So it makes you think about how we can all work together to create a world that's more inclusive and accessible for everyone, right?
It definitely raises some important questions about how we design our public spaces and how much we consider the needs of everyone in our community.
Right, because even small changes can make a huge difference in people's lives.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for today.
Yeah, that was a great discussion.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. Until next time, take care.
So yeah.
Bye.